edition of the Michigan Lacrosse Review. My name is Greg Norman, your host, and with us is the great Team 91 leader, Chris Cullen, who's also the former University of Detroit Mercy head coach. And we're missing John Losey today, but John's involved in doing some broadcasting, and we're going to have that conversation a little bit later. But Chris, we've been out for a little bit. We're back now. It's the second week of the high school season. Lots going on, and I appreciate you joining me.
Thanks for having me.
I guess the thing I want to talk about is there been anything surprising, and I guess the first thing I was thinking about in going through this schedule is that injuries have seemed to be a major factor. And interestingly enough, at least from the people and the coaches that we've talked to, injuries seem to be lingering from other seasons and not necessarily from this season, and they just kind of carry over because it now takes 6 to 9 months to get over an ACL pull, and it had an effect on a lot of teams.
Well, I think injuries, lack of JV teams, a lot of things. There's just so many. We're in a weird time in this moment, I think, and yeah, I mean, injuries. Trust me, injuries. You go down 2 or 3 kids that you think you're going to have or that you prepare for, and you replace them with kids maybe just as talented, but without the same level of experience or expertise, probably the same amount of potential. It's going to take you a little bit of time. And you guys in high school, you don't have that much time. You start the season and you guys start scrimmaging and you got games right away. So to develop somebody and develop a deep bench is really difficult. So.
Well, I think some of it comes from, we've been not me with them, but we've had the opportunity. Our high school team's been practicing basically once a week since October. So it's not like we're just getting there. But here's just hear me out on this and see if it makes any sense to you. This bigger, faster, stronger process has been in place for a while. I've got 4 players out with season-ending injuries that occurred during football. And as I look at the bodies of these players, everything from a kid who's 15, who's 260 pounds and 6'3", to a guy that's 5'8" and 165 pounds. The football programs and some of the other athletic programs are pushing maximum weight. I know schools that are lifting at 6 in the morning. Football has only been over for 2 weeks. Are we putting too much of a musculature on frames that haven't grown yet? And if you look at the kind of injuries we have, it's tears in the ACL, it's labrum tears, all of which are stress kinds of related injuries. And you wonder if bigger, faster, stronger is necessarily the right way to go. Because I know that's, if the coaches aren't preaching getting bigger and stronger, and I just wonder if it makes any sense. I'm not sure that we're doing the things we need to do in the weight room that might hurt players.
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to have a very, is the supervision enough, number one, and number two, I would say, you take some of these turf fields that are 10 to 50, when they were put in and they need to be replaced every 8 or 9 years to take away some of the stress. And some of them are going on 12, 13, and 14 years. You'll end up seeing a lot more ACL and knee injuries and youth injuries as the fields get older. So, I think a lot of school districts and schools in general put turf in, and they didn't realize that, okay, this is only a 10-year thing. They're thinking, I'm going to put turf in. I don't have to mow the lawn. I don't have to do anything. It's going to last forever. Well, that's not the case. So variety of different things. I know, again, at least my take is all the athletes I work with pretty, supervised, paid lifting, and I know more core strength and it's not bulk. It's strength and athleticism is coached more. And I think that shift has been made, and maybe some programs are still doing the bulky thing, but I think the bulky thing is going away for sure.
We had a very successful season last year, and I've got 9 guys out. 3 all-state guys sitting on a bench. Oh. So you're starting literally guys who were second string last year or JV players who had no varsity experience. You've upgraded your schedule, and it comes with the territory. And listen, I have no medical background. I have a little training background, but I'm not giving you an opinion on skeletal versus muscular, any kind of scientific process. Just looking at it, it just seems the kinds of injuries you got to wonder a little bit.
And Greg, we go like Notre Dame had some major injuries, youth injuries. Again, I think sometimes it just happens, right? You just get a couple, in today's day and age, you get sometimes things happen in bunches and, again, uh, to get a kid up to speed when you've got 2-3 games a week, that's difficult. After some kids with experience are out, so it's why you're making the big bucks, and it's why all coaches make the big bucks. And next man up mentality is great, but the mentality is one thing, the actual execution is another. So yeah.
We just did a setup with junior varsity programs. I'm the secretary of the Coach Association. So it turns out we've lost 27 junior varsity programs across the state at this point. And I'll use the Flint Metro League as the best example. It turns out there are 5 teams in the league. They had 5 junior varsity programs last year. This year they got 2. So if you play 3 times, there goes 6 games.
Greg, I thought about that. Because I know when we were going to set this up, that was in the email, and I took a little bit of time and thought about it, and it's in colleges they were really thinking about the cliff that's coming, and really if you look at it, the first economic downturn that we had, the GM bankruptcy in the area, that was about 16 years ago, and your average JV kid's about 16 years old, and then you add COVID a couple of years ago. I think this is a small blip, and doing what I do now for a living at Team 91, I can tell you that 16, 15, 16, 15, 14, 16, 15 really age group is a lighter group. But I'll tell you, there is a lot of kids playing in elementary school. There's a lot of kids playing in early middle school. I really think that those kind of other factors and socioeconomic and things that have kind of happened outside of the world have affected sports a little bit. So I think that's probably why I think these JV teams will all be back, and I think they'll be back in bigger numbers coming forward. But I think we're in that little downturn that every small college in America is worried about in a couple of years happening. So that's where I think it is. I don't think it's a lack of interest in lacrosse or whatever. I just think we had that little bit of downturn where there weren't as many babies being born 16 years ago, and there's also not as many kids playing sports, and not as and then you add COVID as another factor. Maybe kids are doing one sport only. I think all those things have come into play in the short run. I think lacrosse will be back. JVs will be back very shortly, I guess.
I'm going to take a no on that, a negative side of that, because the 3 things I've looked at, the federation numbers are shrinking, and that's a fact.
Yeah.
Look at the number of programs in Michigan in the last 5 years, from about 139 teams to 180 teams now. But the problem is, 5 years ago there were 6 or 7 co-ops. There are now 39.
Yep.
Take Wall Lake as a guest example. They used to have 3 teams. They now have 1. Well,
correct. And that one team's really good, though.
They're very good, and yeah. That's not. If you want to go all the way back, when you used to have Utica, Eisenhower, Stevenson, yeah. I think the combined enrollment at that point for the 4 teams in that area when they were playing in the old MSLA days was something like 11,000. I mean, it was ridiculous. Yep. Stevenson had 2,000 or 3,000. Utica had a bunch of kids, and so on and so forth. I get that part of it, but what I'm saying is, in talking to some junior varsity coaches or talking to head coaches, the numbers in some of the other sports this spring have gone up. Their program hasn't. They've lost those kids. And in some cases, they were getting a flow of kids who maybe have gotten cut from baseball or got cut from track coming out. And that was kind of how they kept the numbers at this point are just, there's not enough kids to play. And so the second part of that same press promise is, the kid comes out for baseball, he's got a glove, no big deal. Now he comes out for the second or third day of lacrosse, and he's got to buy a $200 helmet, a $150 pair of gloves, he's got to buy a stick, and he's got to buy, and he's got to buy, and he's got to buy. So all of a sudden, it's a $500 bill before he gets there, and the parents are wondering why we can't give it to him, because that's the process. So there's a bunch of barriers that are different, and I would say the same thing if we were playing maybe golf, skiing, again, sports that are much more related to expensive equipment. And I think that's part of that process too. I really do believe that.
Yeah. I mean, it's probably, I think we're probably right in everything we're saying, right? It's probably a little bit about everything. So,
Or
I just know in doing what I do right now at Team 91, I have a lot of kids I mean, you go to a community, a lot of the community programs around here, elementary, early middle school programs, they are, like Detroit Terps, they're full. Everybody's full. Everybody's turning kids away at those early, fifth grade and under programs. So that's where I'm hopeful that it's going to come back and grow. Because I do think JV, JV is such an important part of the process in any sport, whether football, basketball, lacrosse. I think you need your best coach at JV, your best development, all that kind of stuff. I think it's such an important role and time.
If I want to just touch briefly, our friends at Warrior have come up with what is look, you know more about this than I do, so I'm going to ask the question. Warrior Lacrosse Day at LCA. Am I right on that?
Yeah.
Okay. Explain to me what that is. And I asked the question from this standpoint. It's an event happening at 3 to 5 in the afternoon. And it sounds like it's this sort of I don't know if it's a clinic. Explain what it is.
It's just a community get together. I think, I think Warrior really values this Detroit area, coaches, players, the lacrosse community, and they were trying to figure out the best way to do it. I mean, gosh, we can all go there, and then for people like me that like watching games, I'm going to go watch Brother Rice and Catholic Central play right after that. So I think it's just they're looking for kind of a meeting point, and they're going to show what they're doing. And I think it's like, hey, this is our backyard, and we appreciate everybody in our backyard. So I think that's kind of what they're thinking of doing. I think it's great. Now it's going to be, the downside is going to be tough for a lot of people to get to, but hopefully with enough notice and everything, people can get over there to it.
3 to 5 is about the 80% of the high school coaches either practicing or playing that day. So I'm not sure what their marketing department is. We're going to put up the poster at the end of this segment so they can see what it is. But Warrior's always been a little, I'll say off. Maybe that's the wrong word. We love them to death and they take care of us and equipment and stuff. But sometimes their marketing, I don't know. It's just that it seems like an odd day. It's like, is it a Tuesday or a Wednesday? I'm not sure.
I think it's a Wednesday. I'm not sure either. But, I just think it's a nice attempt. Again, it's hard to say anything bad about Warrior. Anything that I've ever asked them to do, they try their best to accommodate. And I think for all the support. Again, I was a Warrior school for 20 some years, and going back to when I was a kid going to college, David Morrow filled up my bag with a bunch of stuff and said, "Here you go." Go off to college and have a good time and let me know how it goes. So I'm the wrong guy to be I'm the wrong guy to talk to.
No, I'm not.
Always been so good
I'm
to me.
I'm not picking on Warrior. I'm not picking on New Balance or anything. I'm just saying it seemed like you'd want a lot of folks there. So maybe you wait till.
Yeah, again, there's always you can't do the summer because people are gone. This, that, and the other thing. I think no matter what, I just like that they're attempting it. And let's attempt it. Let's do it again, and let's try to make it better next year, right? So the fact that they're even acknowledging us as a local lacrosse community, I think, is great.
All right. We're going to talk briefly. University of Detroit Mercy plays Moyne College coming up this Saturday. Right after this segment, we're going to have a chance to spend some time with Dan Sheehan. If you're not familiar with who Dan is, he's been at Moyne for 29 years.
Forever.
Record of 342 and 69. He's won, I think, 4 national championships at the lower division level. In 24, actually in 23, they made the decision. In 24, they were 17-1 in 23. They were 3-8 last year, but they're already at 5-3. We're going to talk a little bit about the game this weekend and how a 1-5 matches up against the 5-3, and then maybe a little bit about what Dan talked to us about jumping from that low level Division 3 up to Division 1, and he's been pretty successful with it. But we'll have that conversation, and we'll be back with that in a second.
I'll never forget the day I nearly died. The only way we found out I had any kind of heart issue was when I went into sudden death. I think unless you are a heart disease patient, you may not know how much work the American Heart Association does behind the scenes to save your life. Since my cardiac arrest, I've watched all 3 of my children grow into adulthood, and I'm still here.
Learn more about the American Heart Association's work at helpheart.org.
Every day, thousands of kids start vaping. And I can't let this happen to my kid. Of course, it's awkward to talk to kids about the dangers of vaping. Hey, bestie, how's sketches? Ready? It's hard to get their attention. Ready? Go. Yes. Look at that. You even turn yours over. So if you want to talk to your kids about the dangers of vaping, you got to get it trending.
No, you're doing it wrong.
Let's go.
Can we talk?
Yeah, what's up?
Visit talkaboutvaping.org for tips on when and how to have the vape talk.
Welcome back. We're talking to the highly successful coach at Moyne College. Dan Sheehan is coming to Detroit to visit the University of Detroit Mercy. You guys got a noon clash with the Titans coming up on Saturday in an NEC game. And have you been to Detroit?
No, I have not.
Okay.
I have not.
Well, tell us a little bit about the team. You guys got off to a pretty good start in your second year in Division One. You guys are at 5-3. Dan, you're one of the most successful coaches that's ever put on a hat at I think 369 and 58, 6 national championships in Division Two. So you guys have moved up in 24, and you've really learned really quick on obviously how to win and with all that experience in Division Two. So talk about this year's Dolphins.
Yeah, I think first of all, making the transition, change is never easy. But I think last year we were in a little bit of a difficult spot. The Northeast Conference didn't sponsor men's lacrosse last year, so we played an independent schedule, which wasn't bad. Actually, I kind of preferred that as opposed to trying to get into another conference that maybe had too many teams. Excuse me, but we spent a lot of time on the road last year. One of the things that I learned in my days of Division Two was, you can't schedule your way to a national championship. The only way to get there is by winning lacrosse games. So, in our first year last year, Andy Shea at Yale is a Lemoyne alum, so he was one of our first calls. Matt Brown is a friend of mine at Denver. He was one of our first calls. So, I think in year one we took some lumps, but we also went into games eyes wide open, ears wide open, and ready to learn as much as we possibly could in a short period of time, so that as we progress through the transition, that we could learn a lot and help us be as successful as possible. And then this year, we're working really hard. I don't know that this is the most talented group that I've ever had, but I was telling my boss the other day that this is a group that is doing everything that we ask them to do. Absolutely everything, no questions asked, and it's a fun group to be around.
The transition from Division Two to Division One, there's got to be some things you learned, obviously. Scheduling up Denver, obviously you get friends with Matt. Matt's been on the show. We've had Bill Tierney on the show. Just out of curiosity, what is it, maybe the one single biggest thing that you sort of surprised you from Division Two to Division One?
Probably consequences. I think in our days at Division Two, we may be able to come out and not have our best performance, and still walk away with a win. The room for error at the Division One level is so small. That and I think the amount of athleticism on a roster. I think one of the reasons why the transition, 3 or 4 year period is a good thing is it really allows you, to kind of get the horses in the stable. I'll put our top 20 against a lot of teams. Um, but in a lot of cases, we just in practice, on game day when you're going up against 6'3", 220, and during practice when you're going up against 5'9",
Right.
165,
Right.
there's a little bit of a difference. I also call it life after contact. The initial contact, whether it's offense or defensive side of the ball, what happens after that initial contact? If your next step is to the sideline, probably not great. But if your next step can continue on the path that you want to go, now you're talking. So yeah, probably those two things.
The game has gotten faster. We've been talking a lot in the show the last few weeks on the speed of the sport. There actually is a place for a guy 5'6", 165, provided that he's faster than the guy 6'3", 220. I mean, it's an obvious process. So
And his lacrosse IQ has to be off the charts.
yeah, there's no doubt about that. We're not really familiar with the style of play coming into Detroit. What is it that we can look for from the Dolphins?
Yeah, I think defense, championships are built around defenses. I think defensively we're a tight-knit group. Um, we have a recipe that's worked for a long time. Our guys are confident. Our guys are intelligent. We don't ask any single one of them to carry the load. We ask everybody to kind of do their job. And if you do your job, then the other 5, 6 guys on the field can make some pretty good decisions about what's going to happen next. So I think defensively we're pretty solid, and offensively, we know who we are. We're probably not going to beat you up and down the field right now, um, but I think we're going to shoot the ball really smart. I think we're going to take advantage of every possession that we have, um, and I think we're disciplined on both sides of the ball.
So someone might suggest well coached.
I'll leave that up to you.
Okay. Well, I get that. You were an Ithaca College graduate, so you obviously understand Central New York and upstate. You're near Syracuse. Is part of your long-term success being in certainly one of the best hotbeds of lacrosse in the country? Is that certainly part
Yeah,
of that success?
a- absolutely. Don't hate me because we're beautiful.
Right. Right.
Located on a map where we are Syracuse University's biggest fans. If Syracuse University lacrosse, both men and women, if they're in the spotlight, then that means we're in the shadow, and that's not necessarily a bad spot to be. There's an awful lot of kids that when you say Syracuse, New York, they think lacrosse. My new boss came to us from Vanderbilt. He said that he was in a Dick's Sporting Goods the other day and couldn't believe the size of the lacrosse section. So we like to think that upstate New York lacrosse is, still one of those traditional hotbeds.
Well, also being a West Jenny grad didn't hurt. The grounding of where you started in high school, probably the best high school program historically in the country. There's not
Yeah,
many
yeah,
there's not many high schools that have a drill named after them, right? It just
that's
doesn't
true. That's
doesn't
true.
doesn't happen. So learning it early at that level has got to be a boost for any coach or anybody that was thinking about being a coach coming into college, right?
Yeah, I think one of the things that Coach Masser, um, you know, taught everybody was, you can be 5'6", you can be 150 pounds, or you could be 6'3" and 150 pounds. But if you could pass and catch and you had a solid lacrosse IQ, he found a job for you. And I think that's one of the things that we've been able to carry in use here at Lemoyne.
We've had a long-standing tradition in the show that we've been doing 5 years between Long Island attackmen and Central New York players in general, and the difference in the process. I'm not sure anybody cared in the Midwest here cares about that. It's also the joke for people telling me that upstate New York is Albany when you're from Lake Placid or you're from Central. You get the point.
Yeah.
So I get that one. I would be remiss to mention a couple of things. Your academic prowess at Lemoyne. I just thought I read something you guys were in the top 12 for academic value, which I thought was pretty cool because nowadays, kids don't know what they're going to pay for school. So it's a great educational university. And talk briefly about that.
Yeah, excuse me. It's I I would say, people talk about a Lemoyne kid. What's a Lemoyne kid? A Lemoyne kid, number one, comes from a great family. A family that, I think if there's one thing that our locker room has in common, every kid in our locker room has in common, it's that every single kid in our locker room has a mom and a dad that worked their ass off to send them to Lemoyne College. So when you start with some grit, that's a great place. And then academically, the class sizes, the faculty, it's a great place. We're a Jesuit school. There's the idea of, community. There's the idea of taking care of our own. And then there's also the idea of, more. Um, we expect more on the field, and just because they're, getting back at 2 a.m. from a road trip, doesn't mean you're not up at 8 a.m.
Right.
Going to class.
Right.
So, yeah, it's a great school, and it's that school piece that's kept me here for 27 years.
Yeah. One of my couple of my players yesterday know that I do games, and they were asking the Dolphins, and they kept thinking it had to be somewhere near water. And I had to explain to them, and not very many people can. I had to explain to them the Jesuit story of why it's nicknamed, and it kind of went through the Syracuse and the whole deal, and
Yep.
then they understood it. But it was um, it. We have a little bit of a conversation earlier in the show about how the nickname was there, so that's been explained. So it was kind of fun.
Usually tell people it's the freshwater dolphin in Onondaga Lake.
Yep. Well, having grown up on the shores of Lake Placid or of Lake Champlain, near Lake Champlain, I get that one for sure.
Yeah.
All right. Well, listen, I appreciate your time. We look forward to seeing you, and we'll certainly say hello on Saturday. And we wish you to have a safe trip and best of luck.
Sounds good. I appreciate you having me.
At the U.S. Center for Safe Sport, ending abuse is not just our job, it's our promise.
We all make choices. When it comes to alcohol, kids make choices whether to drink or not.
Bye, Dad.
Bye-bye.
Remember, I'm going to Alex's party tonight and sleeping over.
Have fun. Hey, have a seat for a second. Remind me about that party again?
Alex is just
And adults make choices whether to talk about it. That's true of parents and every other trusted adult in a kid's life. Kids want to know our expectations when it comes to alcohol and other drugs. They want guidance and honest answers to their questions. And it makes a difference when the message is consistent and part of everyday conversations. So talk with your kids and help lead them on a positive path. Because when you talk, they hear you. For more information about talking with your kids about underage use of alcohol and other drugs, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
That was Dan Sheehan, the Lemoyne College head coach, very successful mentor, been at Lemoyne for 29 years. If you're not familiar with where Lemoyne is, it's up in the Syracuse area, central New York. And Chris, we're going to talk a little bit about the game, but I want to start with the easiest of questions. It was just something that hit me. We're doing the broadcast this coming Saturday against UDM, and when I started think of Jacksonville, and they have a fish for their mascot. Lemoyne has the dolphin. And if you're in Syracuse, it's not exactly like you're close to an ocean. So you know a little bit about this. So maybe explain what Lemoyne Dolphin is all about.
Well, and again, this is probably the first time I'm going to actually miss my job at University of Detroit because I really enjoyed bringing other things into my kind of pre-game and game week. And I think the Dolphin is a wonderful situation. It's actually Iggy the Dolphin, which after St. Ignatius, right? Because they're a Jesuit school in St. Ignatius. So, and I love this Jesuit stuff. And it would only take a Jesuit to kind of make the jump to a Dolphin. So the reason they're using the Dolphin is the Archdiocese of Syracuse has a dolphin on their seal. How did they even get that? Well, in the Sicily, the Archdiocese of Sicily is next to the Sea of Syracuse, which is what Syracuse is named after. And I guess in the Sea of Syracuse, there are a ton of dolphins, right?
Right.
And so the Jesuits would spend every morning watching the dolphins in their community and how they would take care of each other and how they were intelligent and how they were caring and smart and all those kinds of things. And since, sometimes it's good to be like a dolphin, right? So I don't think on Saturday it's going to be good to be like a dolphin. But the Sea of Syracuse is what Syracuse is named after. So the connection goes all the way back. So I think it's a very Jesuit way of kind of linking your history and your community, and that's what they're really good at doing. And I think Lemoyne did a very good job of that. I don't think many people think of it, but I'm sure Tim McClaney is going to work with us at 91. He's a Lemoyne graduate. He's from the area. He's coached at Country Day for a while. He's of the McLean family that we all know. And I'm sure he knows that. And I sent him a text and he hasn't gotten back to me, but I think I'm not no history major, but I think I got it pretty close with this. That's where the Dolphins come from.
Well, they're coming to town Saturday. I think it's going to be a great game. The NEC is kind of back to full strength. It's I think very compatible size schools.
Yeah, it's going to be a great game, I think. Detroit's got to figure out the scoring. They got to figure out their offense. They got to figure out time of possession, which I hope they do. And, what we've learned in college lacrosse in general, every week has been so different, right? I would have never have thought they would have, Lemoyne would have knocked off VMI. They took a VMI team that's been just pumping in goals and stop them from that. And, you take Rutgers beating Hopkins. That was one of the, that's a great program win of all time. Right. And, I know Michigan's had Maryland's number, but you just look at each week to week, right. Ohio State, look, would you have thought, a month ago, Ohio State would be in the position there. And so everything's week to week. Everything is game to game. And the good news is, Lemoyne's going to be coming down to Detroit. I'll tell you, a lot of people struggle that first time coming down 7 Mile. So I hope that Detroit takes advantage of that. I hope they can figure out their offensive woes. And the kids are going to be, it's going to be a pretty similar battle. And I'm it'll be a good one on Saturday for you to call. I hope it's going to be really interesting.
Looking back at when you talked to Dan a little bit, I did some history on the process. So they go 17-1 and 23, win a national championship. The next year, look at their schedule. They played Denver. They played Towson. They did not bypass anybody. So they went, 3-8, and they played their 11 games, but they jumped into the meat of the subject and played a lot of really good teams and didn't play that bad. They only lost to Denver, I think, by 4. So now you come forward. And remember, all those Division I, 3, Tony Seaman would tell you this, all those Division III teams always get people coming from
Division II.
Division II, my mistake. Those teams always find Division I, guys that weren't happy wherever they were to come home to be with their girlfriend or to be close to the parents, whatever it might be. And if you look down the roster from this year, there's 5 or 6 guys that play pretty good lacrosse at other universities that are now back in Syracuse.
Sure. And I mean, Division II is great.
Well, and here's the other part. Where do you think Dan went to high school?
Probably in Syracuse, right? Or
West Gen. West Gen.
Yeah, there you go. So
if you know anything about the sport, West Jenny to high school is the Yankee Stadium. I think that's a fairly fair statement.
Sure.
People that have come out of there. how many high schools have a drill named after them as a warm-up drill, right?
Sure, yeah.
So he's got that kind of background. He's been very successful, and I think you're going to find out that he's going to be a real player in NEC.
Yeah, no, I mean, again, it's who knows, right? And I just hope it's the same kind of thing. It's matchup based. It's who's going to go against who. Game planning and it comes down to Detroit's just got to find some offense, right? From somebody somehow, some way. And once they figure that out, that you're going to see scores are a lot different. I mean, Ryan Richter's had 20 some saves. I think 21 saves against LIU. I mean, that's you can't. That's something you can't not look at, and that's going to put you in a position to win if you can take the other part of the field and do your job. So, they'll figure it out. And Le Moyne's been pretty even. They played a much easier schedule. They're lucky that they have other, the St. Bonaventures and the Canisiuses and schools that can give you a within shooting distance of them day trips. That makes it a lot easier to have a record like that than it is at Detroit. So, throw the baby out with the bathwater. This is a conference game, and you might say it's a kind of a must win for Detroit to get into that conference tournament. So kids with backs, they're back against the wall. Let's hope they do the best they can.
All that in Jersey Day down on 7 Mile. It'll be
there you go, man.
It'll be a fun day to watch, and we hope for the best. So we're going to bring you kind of a fun. We talked a little bit about talking about high school lacrosse. We're going to this week and next week. Most of the schools are on spring vacation. We're going to kind of pass that. We get the first part of April. We'll come back and have some conversations. But we're going to do something fun. We're going to do an inside view for next week of what it's like to see a broadcast from maybe a broadcaster's view of how we look at games from at least UDM. And we've got some footage from Cleveland State that we did a couple weeks ago. We're going to kind of show you two different versions of the same job and how it works, and maybe have some fun with that. And then we'll get John back next week. I wanted to thank Dan Sheehan for joining us. Appreciate his time.
Yeah, what a good dude, right?
Absolutely. And answers the phone quick, says, how can we help? And so we'll look forward to a great game on Saturday, and we'll be back the middle of next week with our 8th show. This is obviously show 7. And for John, who's not here, and for Chris, who's sitting next to me here, we'll see you next week. Thanks for coming.
Thanks so much.